We live in an age of disposability. Every year, humanity discards billions of tons of synthetic waste. Among the most persistent offenders are sanitary products. Engineered for single use, composed of 90% plastic, they are designed to last for 500 years. But nature has already engineered a solution. It has been hiding in plain sight in the world's most popular fruit. This is the story of how agricultural waste is transformed into a medical-grade revolution. We are entering the world's first industrial-scale banana fiber facility. Here, brute force meets microscopic precision to turn a discarded tree trunk into the future of hygiene. Journey begins here at the equator. This is one of the largest banana plantations in southern India. It spans over 4,000 acres. To the average consumer, the banana is just a fruit. But to a botanist, the banana plant is an engineering marvel and a logistical nightmare. Strictly speaking, this isn't a tree. It is the world's largest herb. The trunk is actually a pseudostem, a tightly packed column of leaf sheaths. Once the fruit is harvested, the plant dies. It will never fruit again. For centuries, farmers had to pay to remove these rotting carcasses or burn them, releasing carbon into the atmosphere. There are roughly 1 billion tons of banana stems discarded globally every year. But inside these waterlogged columns lies a structural secret: cellulose. Harvesting the fiber isn't as simple as collecting wood. It is a race against decomposition. A single banana stem can weigh up to 80 kilograms. However, 90% of that weight is water. We are essentially transporting heavy sacks of fluid to get to the tiny percentage of fiber hidden inside. Logistics here is a calculation of density versus distance. If the processing factory is too far, the cost of fuel to transport the water weight destroys the profit margin. The factory must be close to the source. These stems have less than 48 hours before fermentation begins to degrade the quality of the fiber. The clock is ticking. Welcome to the intake bay. This is where the chaos of the field meets the order of the assembly line. The first step is triage. Not all stems are created equal. Inspectors look for disease, rot, or stems that are too thin to process efficiently. A good stem must have a diameter of at least 20 centimeters to yield viable long-strand fibers. Sanitation is critical. Before we can think about making a sanitary pad, we have to remove the jungle. Soil, insects, and fungal spores must be blasted away before the material enters the clean zone. Now the physics of extraction begins. The stems are about to undergo the peel. To get to the fiber, we must peel the stem layer by layer, much like an onion. The outer layers are tough and green, rich in chlorophyll but coarse. The inner layers are white, soft, and pristine. This separation is crucial. The coarse outer fibers will be diverted for ropes and textiles. But the snow-white core, that is the prize, that is the material destined for the laboratory. But right now, they are still locked in a matrix of hemicellulose and lignin. To free the fibers, we have to destroy the plant. This is the decorticator. In the industry, it is simply known as the beast. The concept here is brutal but effective. It relies on a difference in structural integrity. The fleshy part of the stem, the parenchyma, is soft and water-filled. The fiber strands, however, have a tensile strength comparable to steel wire of the same diameter. The drum spins at 1,200 revolutions per minute. As the blades impact the stem, the sheer kinetic energy shatters the soft cellular walls of the pulp, liquefying it instantly. It is a process of extraction by destruction. Everything that isn't strong enough to survive the beating is washed away as waste. What remains is pure, raw fiber, but this fiber is far from clean. It is currently coated in lignin and natural gums, a biological glue that makes the material stiff and hydrophobic. If you tried to use this in a sanitary pad now, it wouldn't absorb fluid. It would repel it. For every kilogram of fiber we save, we generate 20 kilograms of waste. In the past, this acidic, nutrient-rich slurry was dumped into rivers, causing massive algae blooms. Here, the facility operates on a zero-liquid discharge protocol. The sludge is not discarded, it is diverted. The organic pulp is pumped into anaerobic digesters to produce methane gas, which in turn powers the facility's generators. The water is filtered and recycled back to the washing stations. The banana plant is essentially powering its own destruction. Back inside, the raw fiber enters the most critical phase of chemical engineering, degumming. Banana fiber is naturally coarse. It feels like burlap. To make it safe for contact with sensitive human skin, we must strip away the pectin and lignin binding the cellulose together. The vats are filled. Add with a precise solution of biological enzymes and mild alkali, heated to 90 degrees Celsius. This isn't just washing, it is digestion. The enzymes act like microscopic scissors, snipping the molecular bonds of the gum without damaging the cellulose structure itself. If the fiber stays in too long, it turns to mush. If it comes out too early, it remains like wire. Timing is everything. After 3 hours, the molecular chains of the gum are broken. The fiber is now soft, pliable, and most importantly, absorbent. The material is now pristine, but it is carrying 5 times its weight in water. Drying this thermally would require massive amounts of energy. Instead, we use mechanical pressure. The mangle, the rollers apply tremendous torque, squeezing the moisture out of the cellular lumen. The fiber goes from soaking wet to merely damp in a fraction of a second. We have successfully isolated the cellulose, but we still have a tangle of long strands. To turn this into a structured, absorptive pad, we need to completely change its state of matter. We have to turn these strands into fluff. The fiber is now chemically pure, but physically it is still a damp, tangled mess. To process it further, we need to remove every last molecule of moisture. We cannot use an oven, it's too slow. We use a cyclone. This is the flash dryer. Inside, air heated to 160 degrees Celsius spirals upward at high velocity. The physics here is elegant. Wet fiber is heavy, so it sinks. But as the hot air instantly evaporates the water, the fiber becomes lighter. Once it is perfectly dry, it achieves buoyancy. It is a self-regulating system. Only the dry fibers are light enough to escape the cyclone. They are sucked out the top, traveling through pneumatic tubes across the factory ceiling like messages in a vacuum system. Now we reach the heart of the transformation, the transition from fiber to fluff. The hammer mill doesn't cut the fiber, it obliterates it. This process is called dry fibrillation. The impact energy separates the individual cellulose chains, creating a chaotic cloud of microscopic fluff. This increases the surface area by a factor of 10,000. Surface area is the secret to absorbency. The more surface area you have, the more places there are for liquid to hide. We have turned a tree trunk into a cloud. In traditional textile manufacturing, you weave threads together. In paper making, you use water to bond pulp. But here, we use air. This is air-laid technology. The fluff pulp rains down onto a moving vacuum conveyor. Because the fibers are randomly oriented, some vertical, some horizontal, they form a three-dimensional matrix. This random orientation prevents the wicking effect where liquid just runs off the side. Instead, the liquid is trapped in the maze of fibers. But banana fiber alone has a limit. It can absorb liquid, but under pressure, like sitting, it might squeeze back out. Enter the partner in this marriage of nature and chemistry, superabsorbent polymer or SAP. These microscopic sodium polyacrylate beads are the heavy lifters of the hygiene industry. They are hygroscopic powerhouses, capable of absorbing 300 times their own weight in liquid. When fluid hits the pad, the banana fiber acts as the highway, quickly transporting the liquid deep into the core. There, the sap beads catch it and lock it away, transforming the fluid into a solid gel. This mixture, the biological speed of banana fiber and the chemical locking power of sap, forms the absorbent core. It is the engine of the sanitary pad. Right now, the core is too fluffy. It's mostly air. It needs to be thin, discreet, and flexible, thermal bonding. The rollers are heated to 140 degrees. They compress the air out and melt tiny synthetic binding fibers that were mixed in, fusing the fluff into a dense, paper-thin sheet. The core is complete. It is thin, dense, and thirsty, but it is naked. It needs a chassis. It needs a top sheet to touch the skin and a back sheet to protect clothing. The final assembly line awaits. We have left the wet chemistry behind. We are now in the domain of the converter. This single machine is the length of a football field and operates at speeds that blur the human eye. The absorbent core is the engine, but it cannot work alone. It must be sandwiched between two critical layers with opposing functions. On top, we apply the top sheet. This is the interface with the human body. It is engineered to be hydrophilic, water-loving. Its job is to pull fluid in but never let it back out. It acts as a one-way check valve. On the bottom, we apply the back sheet. This layer must be hydrophobic, water-fearing. Historically, this was solid plastic. Today, we use a microporous breathable film. The pores are small enough to block liquid water molecules, but large enough to let water vapor escape. This breathability reduces heat and humidity, the enemies of skin health. Lamination. Dare precise tension, the layers are fused. If the tension is off by even 1%, the pad will curl or wrinkle. Laser sensors monitor the alignment 10,000 times a second. To hold this architecture together, we don't use stitching. We use hot melt adhesive. The glue is heated to 160 degrees Celsius. It is sprayed in a specific spiral pattern. This maximizes adhesion while using the minimum amount of glue, keeping the pad flexible. Next, we add structure. The web passes under an embossing roller. This isn't for decoration. These grooves act as aqueducts. When fluid hits the pad, it naturally wants to pool in the center. The channels guide the liquid longitudinally, spreading it out to utilize the full length of the absorbent banana core. Now the wings. These are cut from a separate roll of non-woven fabric and indexed onto the main web. This is the most mechanically complex part of the process, the slip and cut method. The main web is moving at a constant speed, but the wings are cut from a slower moving roll. The machine has to accelerate the cut wing piece to match the speed of the web perfectly at the moment of impact. A mismatch of milliseconds results in a jam that can stop the entire factory. Finally, the release paper. This protects the adhesive until the user is ready. It is coated in a microlayer of cured silicone, the only material that the aggressive hot melt glue refuses to stick to permanently. We still have one long, continuous strip. We need individual units. Enter the rotary die cutter. This is a rolling cookie cutter made of tungsten carbide, one of the hardest metals on Earth. It spins against a hardened steel anvil roll. The tolerance here is measured in microns. If the blade is too deep, it cuts the conveyor belt. Too shallow, and the pads are still attached to the trim. 800 pads per minute, 13 per second. A blur of white engineering. But a flat pad is too large for a pocket or purse. It must be folded. The folding box tucks the pad into a compact square. Simultaneously, it wraps the unit in a final outer pouch film. Sealed, sterile, ready, from a rotting banana stem in a muddy field to a sterile, high-tech medical product. The transformation is complete, but before these boxes can leave the factory, they must pass one final, rigorous test, the quality control lab. Speed means nothing without performance. Every hour, random samples are pulled from the line and brought here, the torture chamber. This is the strike-through test. It measures the velocity of absorption. The industry standard requires the fluid to penetrate the top sheet in under 3 seconds. The banana fiber core, with its naturally high capillary action, achieves it in 1.2. But absorption is easy. Retention is hard. This is the roulette test. We simulate the pressure of a human body sitting down. If even a drop of liquid is squeezed back out to the surface, the test fails. The superabsorbent polymer has locked the fluid into a gel state. It is physically impossible for the liquid to revert to water. Finally, the invisible threat. Because this material comes from the earth, it must be screened for pathogens. Samples are incubated to ensure zero bacterial or fungal growth. Nothing leaves this building unless it is clinically sterile. Once cleared, the product enters the logistics stream. This single facility produces 2 million pads every 24 hours. That is enough to supply the entire female population of a medium-sized city every single day. These trucks are not just carrying hygiene products, they are carrying a shift in the global paradigm. To understand the true scale of this engineering feat, we must look at the end of the life cycle. A traditional plastic pad will outlive the woman who used it by 4 centuries. It will sit in a landfill, slowly breaking down into microplastics that poison the water table. The banana fiber pad returns to the earth in less than 6 months. It is compostable. It decomposes into organic matter, nitrogen, and carbon, feeding the soil for the next generation of crops. For the farmers, what was once a burden, waste that cost money to destroy, is now a second cash crop. Their income has increased by 30% simply by selling what they used to throw away. We often look to the stars or to silicon chips for the future of technology, but sometimes the most advanced engineering solutions are biological. By combining heavy industrial mechanics with the delicate chemistry of nature, we have turned an environmental problem into a humanitarian solution. This is the power of green gold. This is the future of manufacturing.